We're back, everybody. This is Squawk with just weeks left for politicians from across the world to try and reach agreement on a replacement to the Kyoto Protocol. Expectations of a significant deal in Copenhagen are at this point fairly low, but the business community sees big opportunities in the climate change story. Today, CNBC is delighted to announce the creation of a carbon council of 9 industry leaders from across the world: DuPont, Vattenfall, Applied Materials, Syngenta, Suntec Power, Exelon, AkzoNobel and TA have all signed up to discuss the story. We kick off our coverage with an exclusive interview with SAP. CEO Leo Apotheker spoke to CNBC's Ross Westgate, who asked if it was essential that the big names come to Copenhagen and iron out a deal.
What is really essential is that we reach an agreement in Copenhagen. In a certain sense, if their physical presence will help the actual obtainment of an agreement in Copenhagen, that's a blessing, and then they should all come. What I'm looking forward to is that we come to a decision in Copenhagen, even if there isn't a treaty in Copenhagen, at least a strong expression of political will to move the agenda forward. It is urgent that we come to a point where we can actually make some decisions around the climate and the greenhouse effect.
And of course, those decisions will be on which is the right way to go. Are the politicians attempting, do you think, are we working on the correct deal?
Well, that's a very, very sophisticated question that would require a big debate. I believe that what we really need to work on is on clear targets, long-term guidelines so that businesses and industries have a framework into which they can operate into.
So less focus on cap and trade and more on investment in technology?
Well, I believe that we need a holistic program. I would welcome that we also talk about technology, because in particular software technology and information technology can have a very quick impact on the environment. At the end of the day, we're talking about using our resources in a significantly smarter way, and technology can have a big contribution to that. Now, I actually happen to believe that cap and trade is also pretty important, because it is by fixing a price to carbon that we can all start to put this into our calculations.
What more do you think the politicians could do then to give business the confidence to invest in green tech?
Making a commitment that rules and guidelines and frameworks that will be made clear either at Copenhagen or right after Copenhagen are there for the long term, that we are not going to change the rules of the game, and it has to be a global agreement. Only global agreements can have an impact, and only global agreements will allow businesses to have the certitude that they know into what they need to invest for the long term.
And is this the sort of the message, is this the reason why you've joined the CNBC Carbon Council, to put this message out?
Well, I want to make an appeal to my friends and colleagues in the business communities globally. Let's all join this bandwagon. Let's all push that we get this framework done. We owe it to our stakeholders, to our next generation.
We've talked about the cost as well. There are reports that emerging nations, it will cost them 100 billion euros to implement to achieve some of the targets we need them to achieve. How do we deal with those sort of costs for nations that will have problems paying for it?
Well, you know, if you go back in time, we had several discussions about things of a similar nature before. I remember many businesses saying, well, we can't invest into quality. It's going to cost several tens of hundreds of billions of dollars. We can't afford, margins are razor sharp, etc., razor thin. At the end of the day, when you start to engage into such a movement, you create more opportunities. More opportunities is something that also emerging markets want to have. And by the way, it doesn't help to be in an emerging market where the environment is so destroyed that there is no future. And if you look at what's happening in some of these emerging markets, I think that the population is starting to understand how important these things are, and there's mounting pressure on the topic, even in the local markets. Now, I completely understand the need that there needs to be some form of financial compensation, or at least financial help, to allow poorer emerging markets to actually make this transition, which is why we need a global agreement. And the emerged first world economies need to lead the way here. We need to show the example. but it has to be a global thing, otherwise businesses in the first world will feel that they are unfairly treated compared to others.
The